He was my stepfather, my protector, my mother's husband. He said he was just helping, just listening, just being there when I needed someone. But help can become something else when boundaries blur and silence grows. I didn't see it coming, or maybe I didn't want to. This is the story of how one small moment became a secret too heavy to carry, and how it changed everything between us forever. Hi, and welcome back to Hearts Awakened, your surest channel for deep emotional, betrayal, and heartbreaking stories. If you're new here, kindly subscribe to this channel and hit on notifications. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for stopping by. Now, let me unleash the deepest and emotional part of this story. My name is Ava, and this isn't the kind of story I ever imagined I'd have to tell. But sometimes, the truth doesn't care about what we imagined. It just unfolds quietly, dangerously, until it becomes undeniable. I was 21 when it all began, still trying to find myself after moving back in with my mom and stepdad. College had drained me, financially and emotionally. My real dad was out of the picture long ago, and Ray had been part of our lives for over a decade. He married mom when I was 11, and though he was never the dad type, he was present. Stable. Calm. The opposite of my chaotic mother. But lately, things were different at home. Mom traveled a lot for work. Days turned into weeks. Ray worked from home as a tech consultant. That meant we shared more space than ever before. At first, I barely noticed the shift. It started small. A question here. A favor there. You okay, Ava? He asked one evening after dinner, as I sat silently on the porch swing. You've been quiet lately. I'm just tired. That's all, I replied, hugging my knees. You sure? He pressed a little too gently. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. It felt kind, maybe too kind. But I was tired of keeping everything to myself. School stress, relationship drama, my mom's growing absence. So I talked. And he listened. In the weeks that followed, he became a sort of sounding board. He made me breakfast when I overslept. Left encouraging notes on my desk. Picked up on things most people missed. Then one day, after a tough phone call with my ex, I came home in tears. Ray was there, of course he was. I don't want to talk about it, I muttered, pushing past him. But he didn't leave. He just stood in the doorway, his voice low. Ava, no one gets to treat you like that. You deserve better. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. It was meant to be comforting. I know that's what he thought, or what he told himself. But something shifted in that hug. I felt it, and I know he did too. I should have pulled away. I should have said something. But I didn't. Not then. From that moment on, something unspoken lived between us. I started noticing the small touches that lingered too long. The compliments that felt personal. He said he was just helping, I told myself. But even then, I think I knew we were both crossing a line. And once you cross a line like that, you can't just pretend it never happened. After that night, things didn't go back to normal. How could they? Ray and I never spoke about the hug, or how long it lasted, or how tightly he held me. But silence isn't the same as innocence. Something had awakened between us, and we both knew it. My mom had left on another trip the following morning, a full week in Tampa. I told myself I'd be out of the house more, go to the library, meet up with friends, keep my distance. But none of that happened. I found excuses to stay. I began lingering longer in the kitchen, where Ray made coffee. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me when he thought I wasn't watching. His compliments became bolder, but still cloaked in care. You always look so thoughtful in the mornings, he said one day, eyes locked on mine over his mug. It suits you. I should have laughed it off. Instead, I smiled. I liked being noticed. I liked the way his attention made me feel, seen, wanted. Not like a child. Not like someone's stepdaughter. Just Ava. One evening, we watched a movie on the couch. I sat at one end, he at the other. But as the night wore on, the space between us seemed to disappear. At one point, I dropped the remote. He reached to grab it at the same time I did. Our hands touched. He didn't pull away. You've grown into such a beautiful woman, he said quietly. I froze. He didn't mean to say it out loud, at least not like that. I could tell by the way his eyes widened slightly after the words left his mouth. But the damage was done. I stood up. I'm going to bed. Of course, he said, almost breathless. Sleep well, Ava. I didn't sleep that night. My heart was loud in my chest, my thoughts louder. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, that I was overthinking everything. But the next morning a note was slipped under my door. I'm sorry if I crossed a line. I care about you. Too much, maybe. Ray. Too much. That phrase echoed in my mind all day. I didn't show anyone the note. I didn't text my mom. I didn't leave the house. Instead, I went downstairs late that night, hoping he'd be asleep. He wasn't. He was in the kitchen, shirtless, sipping water. When he saw me, he froze. Couldn't sleep? No. We stood there in silence. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was him. But before I knew it, I was in his arms again. This time, it didn't feel like comfort. It felt like a choice. And I didn't stop it. The moment passed, but the damage didn't. Ray, and I never said what happened that night aloud. No confessions. No apologies. But in that quiet kitchen, wrapped in an embrace that never should have happened, we crossed a boundary we couldn't uncross. The next morning, I avoided him. He knocked on my door around 10, but I pretended to be asleep. When I finally came downstairs, he was already gone, probably to the co-working office he used sometimes. A part of me felt relieved. Another part felt abandoned. For days, we moved like strangers in the same home, careful not to speak too long or too softly. My mother returned that Friday evening, her voice bright and cheerful as she pulled her suitcase inside. I missed you too, she said, hugging Ray, then me. Ray smiled. Too convincing. I couldn't meet her eyes. My guilt felt like a second skin. She didn't notice, not right away. But moms have instincts, and mine was no fool. A week passed, then another. One evening at dinner, she asked, "Everything okay between you two? The house feels off." Ray answered too quickly. "Just busy, that's all." She looked at me. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, same here. But cracks don't stay hidden forever." That night, she found the note. The one Ray had slipped under my door. I tucked it into a journal I thought she'd never open. But she did, while borrowing it for a church event idea. I came home to silence. She was sitting in the living room, the note on the table in front of her. Ray stood nearby, looking pale. "What is this?" she asked me. I felt my knees go weak. I didn't lie. Not really. But I didn't tell the whole truth either. I said it was a misunderstanding. I said Ray had just been too involved, too protective, and I had pulled away. Ray backed me up. "It wasn't what it looked like," he added, voice low. "But I crossed a line. I'm sorry." Mom said nothing for a long time. Then she picked up the note, tore it in half, and walked upstairs. She never brought it up again. But something between us died that day. Weeks later, she told me she was taking some time apart from Ray. Just for clarity, she said. But I knew better. She didn't trust either of us anymore. Ray eventually moved out. I stayed with Mom, though things were never the same again. What began as help, as kindness, as comfort, turned into a secret that stole trust and shattered a home. Ray and I don't speak now. We never had a second moment like that. There was no affair. No romance. Just a mistake wrapped in silence and shame. And sometimes that's worse, because you carry it quietly. People always ask how something like this happens. The truth? It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in the spaces. The silence. The help that went too far. If you find this story helpful and interesting, kindly subscribe to this channel and hit on notifications for more interesting stories like this.